Good morning. One more time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. Welcome to our fall town meeting, which is a tradition here at Olin for those of you who are new, and for those of you who are not new, you'll see some of the same sorts of things discussed in this report as we've done in the past, but with an update. I'd like to figure out how this works first. Apparently none of the buttons work, so I will go plan B. First off, I'd like to welcome a number of groups to our community, people who have arrived at Olin for the first time. Obviously, we have a whole new arriving class of first-year students. So maybe I'll just ask the first-year students to stand. Yeah, terrific. We also have some exchange students. Is that right? Are there any exchange students that happen to be in this audience? Okay. I don't see any. They've already figured out what's important and what's not. We have a few new faculty members, which I will introduce later, and some new staff. And so I'd just like to welcome all of you for being here and talk a little bit about where we are in the college's trajectory and where we're going. We had an interesting start with the hurricane on the day that we moved in. I was actually flying back from South America that day on an airplane, and I made it into Logan with the very last flight before they closed the airport. So raindrops began to fall on the windshield as I was driving home. So it meant an exciting start to our semester. I'd also like to welcome a new member of our community, Dr. Vin Mano. Vin, would you stand up for just a second? Vin is our new provost and dean of faculty. We've been waiting for Vin for quite a while now. In fact, one of the comments from our evaluation team for accreditation in the spring was that they were worried that Vin's job was virtually impossible because everyone they talked to said, well, when our new provost comes, we're going to do these magnificent things. So we're glad that you're here, Vin. Thank you. Since we met last February, there's an awful lot that's happened inside the Oval. And I'd like to first off begin with some congratulations. Some of the things that have happened just since the last town meeting last semester. We've had a number of faculty members that have been promoted. The promotion cycle for faculty always takes an entire year. They're the ones who are up for promotion this year are preparing materials right now, and there's a committee that's meeting, and the answers about these promotions will come out about May. So these answers were the answers that came out on our campus last May. And you can see there are a lot of faculty members that were promoted, and there are also some staff members that were promoted. So what I'd like to do is just take a moment right now and congratulate all of the people on this slide. Get it? Great. That's forward, right? See there? It just takes an expert. Admission, class of 2015. We're very proud of this class. We're proud of every class, but we're especially proud of this class. These are words chosen from Charlie's famous talks that he gives every year. 87 students. Our target was 84. That came about as close as Charlie has gotten to hitting the target on the nose. 54% women and 46% men. That speaks to our interest in diversity and gender balance. 18 National Merit Scholars. We've had just a tremendous class. We're really convinced that the college's future depends on the quality of the people that we bring here, and this year is going to continue to build that tradition. In the class of 2016, they're not here yet. That's the next year's class. We're busy now trying to develop interest and enthusiasm and applications as a matter of about January 1st for the class that will enter next year. So you can see some of the things that are underway. In addition to the people, it takes resources to make an institution like this work. Olin has a very unusual financial model that depends more on endowment than most other schools do. I think right now it's something like 70% of our operating revenue comes from endowment. And so we care about how our investments are doing. This past year, the performance, the year, by the way, fiscal year ends on June 30th. So the past year saw 17% growth in the endowment, at least the returns that we obtained on the original principal on July 1st last year, taken over the full 12-month period, resulted in a 17% growth, which is really excellent. Of course, it's on a smaller base than we had before because the market had gone down in previous years, but that's certainly moving in the right direction. And the value of our endowment as a benchmark on June 30th was, preliminarily at least, $370 million, which is up from where it was the year before. So everything's moving in the right direction. However, since June 30th, we've had some really interesting things happening in the stock markets and a lot of volatility, which means that the market goes up one day and it's down the next day, and the size of the swings is really large. So as a result, the preliminary value for the end of August is only $354 million. So you can kind of get the idea that there's a plus or minus $15, $20 million swing, depending on what time of day it is and how things are going in the market. Now, the way we determine what we can safely spend for operations without endangering our financial future is from a formula that's based on what's called a 12-quarter trailing average. So every quarter of the year, after 90 days, we compute what the value of the endowment is, and then we average those across 12 trailing quarters, or 3 years, and that value is used to set what the safe amount of spending will be for the next year's budget. And this is going to continue to decline, as I'll show you in this graph, meaning that the effects of the 2008 financial crisis are not completely gone. They will continue to affect us for at least a while longer. There, for example, is a graph of the college's endowment. Oops, now what did I do? Yeah. Okay. Be careful with these things. The blue value, the blue line on this is the actual value of the endowment on the date at the end of that quarter. So you can see it's wandering all over the place, mostly down in the 2008 period, and now it's kind of climbing up. In fact, if you look carefully, you can see, I could figure out how to do the pointer without making it do that again. I would show you that the blue lines to the left of this graph have a noticeable slope upwards over time. And if you think about the blue lines to the right of the graph, in the last year or two, you can see a similar slope upward. Just it has this displacement that happened in the middle. And so the slope is going in the right direction. It will take a while to recover from that, and then the rate of recovery will be really important. The red line, on the other hand, is the average of the 12 preceding quarters. And so it smooths it. This is a real smoothing function. And you can see it's headed down. The real good news from since we last met in the auditorium, look at the last 2 points on the right, which are the most recent ones, and you can see that the blue dots are now above the red dots. That's a good thing. When the blue dots are consistently above the red dots start moving up. And that means that the college's ability to spend from the endowment in their operating budget, in fact, has more breathing room in it. I think there's going to be an inflection point in the red curve in the next few months. That's our hope. Now, in the next fiscal year, we're going to drop off those last 4 data points, and they'll be replaced with 4 new ones that we don't have yet. that will be on the right-hand end of the graph. And it's pretty clear that the three dots in the leftmost part of that oval are quite higher than the blue dots that are on the right of the curve. And so that will mean that the red graph is going to continue to decline for at least another year. Okay? So we're not out of the woods. All of this, you couldn't do this talk actually probably at an art school or a liberal arts college because folks wouldn't be so graph-oriented. All of this is to explain to you why we're still watching our budget very carefully. Now, the operating budget, on the other hand, also closed on June 30th. We have a target for how much money we can spend, and we do our best to be good stewards of the resources without hurting the academic mission of the school. Well, once again, we finished the fiscal year with about $700,000 in the approved budget that we didn't have to spend so that we could put that back into the endowment and prevent the red line from dropping even faster. That means it actually $1.39 million went into a contribution to a capital reserve fund for use in the next couple of fiscal years. We have been working with the board to find a way to take advantage of the good stewardship that the college has provided, because we've never had a year where we've spent more money than was allocated in the budget. If that ever happens, you'll probably have someone else standing down here in the auditorium giving these talks. It won't be me. And since that has an amount of money which is left over, why not allocate that to the next fiscal year and avoid taking any more down from the endowment? It reduces the spending request for the future years. The spending rate was actually 5.43% this year, as opposed to the approved budget, with the trustees said it would be okay if you spend that much, and that was 5.59%. We actually spent 5.01% when you take into account that we took some of the leftover money at the end of the year and put it into a capital reserve for future years. That wasn't actually spent. That was simply reserved. We only spent 5%. In fact, we have a smaller endowment that we're taking 5% of. When you multiply that 5% times the smaller endowment, it turns out the total dollars that we spent from the endowment this year is the lowest that we've ever spent since the college has been full-size in enrollment. So this is all moving in the right direction for financial stability. The reasons why we were able to end the year in the black have to do with several things. The debt service, we have about $160 million in loans to pay essentially the mortgage on our campus facility. And those mortgage loans are extremely low interest rates right now. You might know that the federal government has basically said they're going to force the interest rate to be 0, essentially 0.1 or some very small number for 2 more years. A lot of Olin's debt service is in variable rate bonds, and those things have very low demand on our operating budget as of this point. So that's helped us quite a bit. Of course, we never know. That could change in the middle of the year and go up, and with $160 million, a 1% increase in the debt service would mean $1.6 million in operating budget we have to allocate somehow to debt. So this is one of those unknown, unmanageable things that shows up. Also, utility rates. We've had really good results with both the amount that we're having to pay, the unit cost for gas and electricity on the one hand, and on the other hand, our campus has been extraordinarily good at reducing the total volume of gas and electricity that we use around here. So the two of those things together have resulted in the big savings for our operating budget too. So again, I want to thank everyone in the community because you're having to put up with tight budget constraints, extra supervision when you're asking for more money, and then simply the behaviors to turn lights off and to be careful about how we spend things around here. Every dollar that we save in the endowment is an investment we can make in a future student at Olin. One of the things that we've been doing is looking for opportunities to increase the revenue available to invest in the really cool stuff that Olin does, and we're doing that through gifts and through donations. So several years ago, in fact in fiscal year 2009, we had raised a total of $806,000 from friends of Olin. In this past year, we raised $1.3 million, a little more than that. So you can see the trend here is really moving upward. And this is something that every other college does, and does it in much larger quantities because, of course, they have many, many more alumni, and they have alumni who are maybe 60 years old and not 28 years old. That makes a difference in what you can do. And we're also looking for other types of community members who may be interested in investing in the school. So these things all have contributed, and we continue to contribute in that way. And the participation rates, which is the percentage of the people in those categories who've made some kind of a gift to the school in the last year, has been really extraordinary. 78% alumni and alumni parents even at 57%. These are very high numbers. They're just numbers to you, but if you could look at them across the whole country and the other kinds of academic institutions that you might recognize, there's almost no institutions that have an undergraduate program that come close to this. So we are thrilled with the support that the community provides. This kind of support also makes it possible for me and for Tom and for others in our community whose responsibility it is to raise money, to talk to people in foundations and in corporations and explain to them, we're asking you for your support, but our entire community is also invested in this. We really believe in this. It's not something that a couple of us made up and we're trying to pretend that people care. People really care about this school, and that's what these numbers represent. We also have a campaign to try and raise a certain total amount of money that's been underway for some time now. It began, in fact, in July of 2009. The focus at the first was on trustees and President's Council and parents. It's now at $4.2 million cumulative since 2009. It's only a couple years. When it gets to $5 million, we will be very public about this, and we'll announce a figure which is the capital campaign size, and we'll be working hard to try to get people who are farther away from the college, major corporations and folks who graduated from some other school who usually make a gift to them, to persuade them to try and invest in Olin instead. The faculty in the academic program has been very busy in the last year, too, in the last several months. For example, we have a couple of new faculty members that have just joined us, Professor Sanjoy Mahajan and Professor Lawrence Neely. Will you guys stand up? Perfect. We're just delighted to have you in our community, and I want everybody to see what you look like so they can all sit by you at lunch and ask you questions about your background. These are just terrific people. I'm anxious for you all to get to know them well. They aren't completely new to our community. They spent some time here last year, so that will give you a head start. Also, there's been some changing roles in the leadership of the academic program. Professor John Geddes has stepped down from his role as Associate Dean, is returning to the faculty, the best job that there is. And his role as Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs and Research is now the responsibility of Mark Somerville, who's now the Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs and Research. And he'll continue to serve in that leadership position. So those are new decisions. In terms of just a few highlights of what's been going on in the faculty academic affairs, we've created this thing called the Innovation Fund, where external donors provide money to try and help fuel the coolest new ideas that are going on campus. And in the last year, that money has gone to primarily developing new math courses and writing across the curriculum activities. And of course, this is a continuing process, so there's already talk going on about what will happen next year with this sort of innovation program. We have 13 scope projects, which are in fact launching this afternoon. There are several continuing sponsors. In fact, if my memory is correct, Drew, I think 8 of them, of the 13, are continuing from previous years, which may be a record. And we have a number of companies who've been doing this for many years now, which is really a terrific thing. And we also have a number of wannabe sponsors for scope projects. These are companies who came to us with a cool idea and, cash in hand, and we had to say, I guess not this year because we ran out of students. We can only do 13 projects. Maybe we'll find something else for you to do. That's a cool problem to have, okay? One we didn't have at the beginning, so this is also moving in the right direction. And then there's this activity that the faculty do, like between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning when they're not teaching. They think about research, and they ask people in the federal government and elsewhere to invest in their ideas, and they've been extraordinarily successful just in the last 6 months or so. $885,000 of total funding and 15 grants. You can see where they came from, and 13 different individual faculties have been successful in the last 6 months or so. So this is a program that also is going on and will touch many of the students because a lot of these programs involve students involved in the research, so I'm sure you know. Strategic planning. We're currently operating on a strategic plan that was completed in 2007, before the financial crisis. That strategic plan had 2 major themes. The first one was what we called strengthen the base. We were worried about how many years in a row you can work primarily and get results that are sustainable. We had barely enough people to keep the thing going, barely enough money. We need to deal with sustainability. This is before the financial crisis. The other main theme that we had was what we called reach for the future. Olin was built on the concept of thinking big ideas and trying to do audacious things. We want students at Olin to think big. We want them to change the world. The college is filled with faculty and staff who have similar ideas. Think big. Of course, you can easily think bigger than your pocketbook, so you have to also be thinking about someone who might help you achieve that goal. Those were 2007 goals. 5-year plan will expire, on paper at least, next summer. We've been waiting for our provost to arrive. It's one of those magical things that the new provost is going to do in his spare time. Work with the president on developing a new vision for the school. So I'm actually calling this a strategic vision more than a plan to set the expectations right. Our goal is not to create a spreadsheet that says, here's what we're going to do on Monday and here's what we're going to do on Tuesday for the next 5 years. It's more a compass direction than a roadmap. Okay? We'll create the roadmap, which will have to be somewhat flexible to accommodate changes in the budget and financial world. As we've seen, there are lots of unpredicted things. But getting the vision right is critical. And that's what we'll be doing mostly this fall. Vin and I will be working very closely together to set a high-level vision which we hope will accurately reflect what the college's strengths and values are and will inspire not just those on the campus, but those off campus as well to invest in our future. We will include the community as we get some ideas that we believe the board is enthusiastic about, and the faculty and the students and the entire community is. We'll expand the circle and meet with you in small groups, in large groups, and get tremendous amounts of feedback and continually revise and come back to you for essentially your feedback on the final approach. And our goal is to be completed with this by next June. So this is just early planning stages for where we're going. We're planning to make some changes in how we present the college to the outside world. Olin is no longer new, and it's no longer free. Those were the 2 most common characterizations of Olin in the media in 2000. Okay? This is this brand new school, and it's going to be free. Can you imagine that? Today, I think the adjectives that describe the school have changed significantly. The word innovation comes up a lot. And we need to be able to reach beyond prospective students and parents to reach new communities that are going to be really important to our future, including corporations and including foundations and including those very successful graduates of other colleges and universities. So to get this started, we're forming a small group of senior staff here to develop a process for leading this effort. Likely there will be an involvement from professional consultants from the outside. There are people who are very good at this, who live in the world of marketing and of media relations that we will most likely engage along the way. So I just wanted you to know this is just getting started, and you will be engaged in this, and you'll hear a lot more about this as the year goes on. Now, what happened to the class that just graduated? All this discussion about high unemployment rates and about the U.S. economy being poor, outsourcing of jobs, and so forth. Well, that's true, but the graduates at Olin seem to be doing pretty well, and this is a very preliminary set of data. They've only been out for a couple months, and apparently 60% of them are employed and 26% of them are in graduate school at this point in time. By the way, over the college's entire history, I believe 41% of our alumni have gone on to graduate school. So this is the percentage that in graduate school on the day they walk across the stage. But what history has shown us is the number of them will migrate into graduate school in the next couple of years too. So this is not the final partitioning there that takes place. 14% of them are not either in graduate school or working. So what are they doing? Well, according to Sally, many of them have offers in hand, but they have very high expectations for something. And so they're not yet signed on the dotted line. Or there's a few of them that are that have a particular kind of job that they're looking for, and that makes it a little more time-consuming to find it. And some of them are just kind of tired of studying in school. Can't imagine how that would happen, and they've decided to take a little time to travel and to think about life before they jump into the next pond. We have 1 Fulbright Scholar last year and 7 National Science Foundation graduate research fellows in this class of 2011. Now, last spring we were visited once again by an accreditation team from the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. This is the regional group that accredits schools like Harvard and Yale and Dartmouth and so forth. It also accredits the local community colleges and even high schools and grade schools in all of New England. And the division that we're in is the Higher Education Division, and they sent a team to visit us in March, and those folks have completed their report. We've looked over it, and we've offered some commentary on the report back to the NEASC people. In our opinion, collectively, the report that they provided was pretty balanced, and we didn't have too many arguments with what they saw as being important issues. This was a very good team. It had included, for example, the Dean of Engineering at Dartmouth and the President of Middlebury College, and a lot of really good colleagues that were here. So we had no significant misrepresentations, we don't think. They did have some concerns and some strengths that they found along the way. The strengths are familiar to us by now. They have to do with the quality of the people, the innovation in the academic programs, and so forth. The concerns are actually not too unusual either. This process will formally end in November. There is a commission hearing where the board of this group will meet, and I will go to represent the college, and President Leibovitz from Middlebury College will go to represent the visiting team, and we'll sort of have like a PhD point over what's working and what's not, and how do you answer these questions. And we fully expect to emerge from that room with a full accreditation, which, for the first time in the college's history, if everything works out the way we expect, we will finally have a 10-year accreditation period with NEASC. This is the 3rd time we've done a NEASC accreditation since 2006. So I think at this point, Olin College has more experience with NEASC accreditation than almost any college in New England. They're now coming to us, asking for advice about how you prepare for these things. By the way, next year we have an ABET review, so that's another one that you'll hear more about in the next one of these town meetings. This is a slide primarily for faculty and staff who get a paycheck from Olin. Turns out the federal government has had some changes in its rules That's a real surprise, huh? What they're interested in is trying to make sure that employees are presented with retirement options that are thoroughly vetted and are sound and good investments for employees to make. So there's a little more oversight here, and this is a process that's being outlined. And you can see staff and faculty committees that are involved in leading it to make sure everybody's aware of what the changes are. Upcoming events. We are holding a reception tomorrow at 2:30 in the dining hall so that everyone in the community who hasn't already done so will have a chance to meet Provost Mano. And so I highly recommend that if you have a few minutes to drop in and shake his hand and get to know a little bit about him. We think he's really a terrific guy, and I think you will too when you get a chance to meet him. Now that's all what's been going on inside the Oval. Now let me talk just briefly about what's been happening externally to Olin that affects our reputation and our outreach. First of all, we have the 3-college partnership, which is just barely outside the Oval. Okay? You just walk across the street and you're at Babson, but they're part of this 3-college collaboration. There's been quite a lot of work going on in the last year. They have a website now that's live. We have had a leadership team that spans all 3 colleges for some time. There is a Presidential Innovation Fund that's sponsored by the Mellon Foundation, where faculty from all 3 campuses can seek funding for projects that touch students on all 3 campuses, something that's quite new. We have a sustainability program, which I believe Olin faculty launched and succeeded in recruiting enthusiastic colleagues from Wellesley and from Babson to work with them to develop a sustainability certificate program that's now launched this fall. There are lots of events on all 3 campuses, and we're trying to sort of imagine the 3 campuses as one sort of mega institution that students are welcome on and faculty are welcome on at any time. And obviously, we have cross-campus dining for students, which has been an adventure in the last couple of years. Those of you who remember the first launch that we had between Babson and Olin, we had a lot of visitors in our dining hall for a while, until we got this sort of, the knobs all tweaked to just the right formula. We have this thing called the I2E2 in Olin, which is the sort of main vehicle that Olin uses to outreach to other colleges and universities about creating innovation in the educational programs. I believe we've been visited, and Sharon and Lynn probably can correct me if I'm wrong, by at least 100 colleges and universities in the last 2 years. Yeah, I'm getting a big nod. Including a visit today. There you go. These folks were from Singapore, I believe. They're from all over the world. We get lots of requests in how to handle this. We channel them through this program, which has really been a startup adventure from the beginning, a very entrepreneurial opportunity. And frankly, in the last 2 years, it has really grown to become a strategic centerpiece of Olin's outreach to the rest of the world. It's exceeded our expectations in most every dimension. The number and type of institutional relationships, the number of Olin people who have raised their hand and said, I would like to engage, is continually growing. The breadth of the kinds of summer workshops and other kinds of workshops and programs has also been growing. It's really convincing us that Olin has a larger opportunity to influence the world than we ever imagined. And this is a great kind of a problem to have. And it was also beginning to attract multi-year financial support from corporations. In this case, AMD and Autodesk, and I think this is the beginning of what could be a longer stream of this. So you should know about this activity, and it's directed, by the way, by Professor Lynn Stein, who you will all know if you don't already, and also her staff, Sharon Breitbart, sitting way in the back, who does a tremendous job of organizing these visits. Also, in terms of external recognition, the IEEE 2010 Helen Plants Award was given this year to our own Professor Mark Somerville and Professor Shara Kearns. This will be awarded, I believe, at the FIE conference in October, next month. So we want to congratulate Mark and Shara for this award. We also, our own Steve Schiffman, whom you all remember, was the interim Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of Faculty last year. And he's been identified in a major award in innovative pedagogy and entrepreneurship with colleagues at Babson College. So those are really cool kinds of external distinctions. There are lots of distinctions that our faculty members win every year, and it would take a long time to list everything. So I just picked out a couple of highlights that I think are especially interesting. By the way, these are not things that you hear about very often, but the National Academy of Engineering has been quite interested in incentivizing other universities and also corporations to think about the grand challenges of the 21st century. Things like sustainability, health, security, even the joy of living and how technology interacts with people on this grand scale. And Olin College has been one of the organizers for these conferences since 2009. And the latest one of these is going to be held in 2013. It's going to be an international summit, joint between the National Academy of Engineering in the US, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and also the Royal Academy of Sciences in the UK. The current planning is that the meeting will be in London, although this is all quite tentative at this point. Olin's a unique player in the organization of this. The player, I believe, that carries the flag the highest for students, for education, and for learning. After all, these challenges are the challenges of the future, and it's going to be today's youth who actually solves them. And in order to reach them, that has to be an important theme in the conference. So you should know that Olin has a role in planning these kinds of events. There are lots of other outreach activities, too long to go into. Personal visits in Korea and Colombia and Brazil. I also got back from Abu Dhabi, that's where I was coming in from, when Irene hit. No, that was Brazil. Abu Dhabi was last Sunday. Right. September 11th, that was another interesting thing. Flying in on September 11th was a fun thing too. Olin has been tapped for strategic advice by the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. So Olin is beginning to have an influence in lots of places, and I think you could probably fill up 2 or 3 slides with more of these that are going on as well that I just didn't know about. It's ranking season. Those of you who hunt for colleges or have recently hunted for colleges have seen Olin's name show up in many different places. For example, the U.S. News and World Report just came out this week for the 2012 ranking. Olin was again number 8 in the country in our category. The Princeton Review has once again identified Olin among the best 376 colleges in the nation, and also obviously the best in the Northeast. They also identified Olin as number 3 in the country in the best classroom experience, number 3 in the country for students study the most. I'm sure that's one that caught your attention. Number 4 in the country for professors get high marks, something which we're very proud of. Number 8 in the country for the happiest students, which is also something we're quite proud of. Number 13 in the country for the best quality of life overall. And even number 20 in the country for the best career services, which I think is a very small group at Olin. And there are other things too. I'm just really proud of that particular survey. It does a good job of capturing the character of Olin. The Fisk Guide in 2012 identified Olin among the best buy schools in the nation. Parade magazine identified Olin as on the college A list, which is the select group of schools that they recommend. Parents and colleges identified Olin as number 1 in the country in the top 10 financial aid providers in the U.S. And there's an interesting group, I'm not sure what to make out of this actually, called stateuniversity.com, which I think is an algorithm that somebody wrote that they feed data into. It includes 2,000 colleges and universities in North America, so you know that's really a data crunching exercise. And it turns out that Olin comes out number 16 in the country on that list. I think it's ahead of Harvard University. I like this formula. I don't even know what the formula is. So you can see how you should think about rankings and how you should not think about rankings. Anyway, in summary, Olin is really off to a great start. The reputation and influence of the college every year exceeds by almost multiples of what it was in the past. The financial position of the college remains stable in spite of the bad news that you read about in the newspaper every day about unemployment and about endowment management. Our alumni continue to turn heads at work and in graduate school, and we're well along in our goal of becoming an important and constant contributor to the advancement of engineering education in America and throughout the world. And that wouldn't happen if it weren't for the passionate commitment and involvement of everybody in this room. So I personally want to thank all of you for what you do to make Olin the place that it is. So thank you.